Good morning, John Garcia and Scott Mackintosh from Atlantic Golf and Turf here at Wilbraham Country Club with our friend, the surfactant guru, Kevin Collins. Kevin's with Ocean Organics and has been working with surfactants for about 20 years and really helped and was integral in putting together the line that Ocean Organics provides to Atlantic and to our customers throughout the Northeast. And we just wanted to spend a little bit of time today, guys, talking about best management practices for surfactant applications, particularly in the heat of the summer. Because I think we've all fielded phone calls in the past of, oh my goodness, I burned my turf, I scorched some leaf tissue. And we wanted to just kind of go through some things and some reminders, really, more than anything else, of what we can do to make sure that we minimize that. So I don't know if we want to start with, talking a little bit about the tank mix issue that sometimes that we run into. And Scott, I'll throw it to you first, and then Kevin can kind of jump in.
So some of the things I think about when I'm asked that question when we can tank mix is what's the golf course stress level that day? And tomorrow morning when they make the application, what's the stress level going to be? We've been very dry this May, and I've been telling a lot of my customers to water the night before making an application of a wetting agent or a tank mix with many other products. And that's not a lot of water, very little water, maybe 5 minutes syringe. That way in the morning, grass being 70% water, that way in the morning, when they make the application, they can begin to water down the application and not cause any of the problems that John just alluded to. But now I want to turn it to the wetting agent guru, Kevin Collins, to actually give us a little bit of a background about what's in our products, our Kev's products that we sell to you folks.
Thank you, Scott. So people talk about surfactants. I get phone calls too, like these guys do this time of year. That usually I get blamed for the burn, but I just want to let you know that surfactants in themselves are not phytotoxic. Now there's a couple different types of surfactants out there. Older surfactants, polyoxyethylenes, alcohol ethoxylates, that they can burn. And like the old, I don't want to say any trade names because I don't want to get sued, but like the old school ones that you used to have a dilution rate of like 10 gallons per thousand. The surfactants now are very, very safe. But what people need to know about them is that they will spread whatever you have in that tank over every square inch of that plant. Surfactants, since water holds itself very tightly, they will break down the cohesiveness in the water in the tank. So if there's anything in that tank that has the potential to cause phytotoxicity or burn, it's going to burn worse. And that's what surfactants are all about. So there's steps you can take during the summertime or during the high stress months, during days that are not very humid but very hot. The susceptibility of that plant to burn is heightened. Let's just put it that way. John is going to talk about products that have that potential, because we all know, especially on fairway sprays, sometimes there's a lot in that tank with very little carrier. So I'm gonna hand this over to John to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. And that's a great rundown of how safe these products really are. I think most of the time when I field these phone calls, and Scott, you're probably in the same boat as well, what we're really looking at is like a plus 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 effect of what's in that tank. And 9 times out of 10, the culprits are the things that are kind of harsh entering the leaf tissue of the plant to begin with, or have some burn potential to begin with. Things like DMIs and plant growth regulators, and products that have fertilizers that have high salt content, high salt load. So that would be things like urea, as well as phosphates are probably the two most common ones, urea and phosphate. And it's usually when you get all of those things together in the tank, right, with the surfactant, that helps to spread it over that leaf tissue more effectively, that you end up running into some problems with some tip burn. So Scott, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that just a little bit more of what actually happens with that tip burn and what guys can expect after that happens. And then what we really need to talk about is how do we avoid that? Because we know guys need to be efficient with their applications, right? And time is of the essence, and we got to get as many things out in a timely manner as we possibly can. So what can we do? What could the superintendent do to minimize that risk moving forward with those tank mixes?
So the issue is when you make an application of, say, Mariner and a propiconazole and you do not water it in right away, we all know propiconazole is xylem absorbed. It gets into the plant and runs up the xylem. But what happens when you have surfactant in the tank and it spreads the leaf even more propiconazole on top of that leaf, it gets in faster. And because it gets in faster, it goes right through a lot of these cell walls and creates a burn before it gets to the xylem and goes up the plant. The other thing to think about on a very hot day like today is that the stomates are wide open. And since the stomates are wide open and there's gas exchange and it's cooling itself off, that happens and speeds up the reaction even more so by having that surfactant along with the active ingredient, in this case propiconazole, getting quickly into the plant, more so than if it would otherwise. And so some of the things I always think of is, again, how stressed out is the plant the day you're making the application? And did you water the night before? If you didn't, then I'm very concerned. Today, here in Wilbraham Country Club, it's going to be 90 plus here today. So getting off the golf course when the air temperature is 80 to 85 degrees is essential. So a customer called me this morning, and he made an application of several things: a Mariner, wetting agent, fungicide, herbicide in the tank. When he left the fairway, he immediately watered for 3 minutes. And if you didn't do that on a day where it's going to be extremely warm, what's happening is these chemistries, because of the spreadability of the surfactant in the tank and on the plant, these chemistries that are not supposed to get into the plant and cause a response like my hair color, which isn't good for grass. So to avoid that, they actually right away begin watering the product in. I've been in the business for selling wetting agents for 20 years, along with Kev, and working with Kevin forever. And I've seen some really awful things happen, and it's been self-inflicted. And it's been self-inflicted because the job's got to get done. They have to stay spraying until mid-afternoon or mid to late morning on an 85, 90 degree day. And that is where the problems begin. Okay, now I'd like to actually ask Kevin a couple of questions. If you could actually lead us, Kev, into what's the safest method and safest way to apply these surfactants.
Thanks, Scott. And just to echo what John was saying, we know that you really don't have a choice about how many chemistries you have in the tank. A lot of times dilution rate is a huge issue. So when we research our chemistries, it's always in 2 gallons of water per 1,000. That's pretty much the industry standard. But talking to a lot of customers who sometimes will have an issue, sometimes it'll be a gallon or less. And what you got to realize, you're not changing the rate, but you're changing the concentration of everything in that tank. It's like you're putting out double. I know sometimes that cannot be avoided. All right, so you're out spraying your fairways. You have a 1 gallon carrier, double the concentration, everything's in there. One thing you can do to keep your grass healthy is after you leave that surface, no matter what it is, water everything off the plant. That's so very, very important. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's okay 2 syringe cycles. And then you won't have to worry. You won't have to come in the next day with tip burn and brown turf and call KC and say, hey, your surfactant burned my fairway, even though we know that's not the case. But anyway, that's another best management practice. It's okay because you can always come back. You have to, and John's going to ask me about this, you can always come back and water in the surfactant properly that evening. I'm going to hand it over to John because I think he wants to ask me a question.
So it's actually a 2-part question. The first part is, how long do you actually have? First of all, where do we want to put these surfactants? Because they are soil surfactants, right? And that's where they're really going to do their work. So how much water do we need, and how long do we have to get that dose of water to the surfactant after application, after you knock it off the leaf tissue? And then there's a follow-up question.
I like that. We always like follow-ups. You have that evening to water it in properly. And the reason for that is, it might last a little bit longer the next day, but you don't ever want to mow it up. So best management practice is that evening before the next day, water it in properly. So how much water do you need? And this isn't specific to any company's products. This is what you need to do. On sand root zones, typically your greens, you want to water it in with 1/3 of an inch of water. That will wet the root zone. That will get rid of the possibility that there'll be hydrophobicity underneath where the chemistry sets up, which defeats the whole purpose of using surfactant. So basically, you want to wet the whole root zone. That will enable water to infiltrate and perk through that root zone without any obstacles. When you're talking about fine textured soils, you look behind us, Wilbraham's fairways. If you're not top dressing and you're looking at clays, loams, this and that, basically on fairways, what you're dealing with is breaking surface tension so that water will infiltrate. Fine textured soils wet up very, very easily. You don't need the amount of surfactant usually for that. So 2/10 to 1/4 of an inch on fairways is the optimum amount of water you'd want to use on those types of soils. So the soils will differentiate the watering in. So in conclusion, yes, you want to do it that night. You want to get the proper amount of water in before the next morning. 1/3 of an inch on sand, 2/10 to 1/4 inch on fine textured soils.
Okay, so thank you, Kevin, for that. That's a fantastic explanation and review for everybody on properly watering in surfactants. There are a couple of products on the market where the recommendation is that you don't have to water it in at all. And I really would love to understand if you could, what your thought process behind that is. I mean, how would a soil surfactant work and do anything if it wasn't placed into the soil?
That's an excellent question. It wouldn't work at all. That's the bottom line. Yeah, they're soil surfactants. They basically, the molecule, when you water it in, the hydrophil, which is your ethylene oxide, it pulls that molecule down through the root zone. And your hydrophobe, which is your propylene oxide, will affix itself to any hydrophobic surface. That's how it works. There's like 1,000 different magnets. If you don't water in a surfactant, it's a wasted spray. You're going to mow it up. And that's the bottom line. So soil surfactants need to work in the soils. They don't work on the plant. They don't work in the thatch. They work in the soil. So they have to be watered in properly.
So in closing, we want to do a quick review on some of the things that we talked about from a best management practices standpoint with surfactants. We also wanted to make sure that we properly recognize the Ocean Organic line and our desire to kind of get together with you guys and talk to you about how properly utilize these products and how they can help deliver some of the other things that we do better, right? So really, in the quick review is these products are designed to improve plant health, to limit localized dry spot, and to help the superintendents and their staffs to manage water better on the property. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. And so it's really unfortunate when any of us guys get a phone call that harm was done from some perspective in that application. So please, early morning or early evening is best time for application. If that's not possible, then you need to make sure that you knock it off the leaf blade right away. Tank mixing, same kind of thing. The fewer number of tank partners, the better. But if you have to tank mix, make sure you knock it off the leaf blade right away and then water it in properly at night. And I think if everybody kind of followed those protocols, they'd be very, very happy with the results that they get. So I'm going to hand it back over to Scott to say a few words, and then Kevin to close us out here.
Yeah, thanks, John. And a big thank you to Matt Kowal, the golf course superintendent here at Wilbraham Country Club, for letting us use his open space on a beautiful day. But John's right. We sell wetting agents for a purpose, to help you guys manage a better golf course. And we'd love to talk to you more about it.
Hey, thank you so much for the time you're giving us. The phone calls that John and Scott talked about, we dread them. We really care about you guys. We want you to be successful. That's the bottom line. When you look at surfactants/wetting agents, remember, they're so very important to your program. Uniform soil moisture, not having to be out there all day watering. You can save water with these products. Efficacy and control of the products that you use can double your nitrogen efficiency. So that surfactant's working hard for you. And like the guy said, a few steps you can take to mitigate the issues you're going to have during these stressful weather times. So very important to follow. Don't take any chances. And everybody that knows me knows I've been preaching these things for close to 20 years. So, but again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. And don't forget, you ever have any questions about surfactants, tank mixing, protocols, procedures, do not hesitate to call us. I'm going to hand